Alright, a bit of an extension of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal Top 10 Monster Summoning Anime, but this time on my personal favorite numbers, which was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal thing, but this time I'm gonna partially include the manga as well, because the manga does include exclusive numbers as well, as of course, the manga is its own story in comparison to the anime, although usually they do share the same main ace monsters. And yes, I will also be including the fake numbers along with the over 100 numbers, since they are still numbers in their own right, and also one additional ruling is that if an evolution revolves around different numbers or if it's a fusion of the form, they're not going to be counted as separate, as it's going to still have the base form counted with that number. For example, the spiders, where there's multiple evolutions of it, but they're all different numbers. Or Heart Earth to Heart Earth Dragon, which are two different numbers. And fusion numbers like number 100, which is a fusion between the Galaxy Eyes along with number 46, a fusion of multiple characters into one is going to be counted as a separate monster, as at that point it requires extra effort as it counts as a completely new monster. And oh boy, this list is going to be a little tough, as there's definitely a lot of memorable numbers to put on the list, but these are the ones that I find the coolest and the ones in my opinion that actually made the most impact throughout the story. And no, number 39 will not be number 1 despite being the main protagonist ace, and I do still find it awesome and it is still in the list, but it will not be number 1. But anyway, just like my other rankings, I'm going to be ranking them based on their base form designs first, based on their appearance, and I'm going to try to do the anime appearances as well, and of course evolve form second. And unfortunately, not every number actually has an evolved form, although in this list, a good portion does have evolved form, which are usually chaos numbers, or in the manga case, shiny numbers. And remember, this is all based on my opinion, so anyway, let's begin. So on the bottom of my list, which is number 10, it is going to be the Dyson Sphere, because it's rare to see a big ass gigantic monster that is bigger than the sun, and this one is a satellite sun, which is what makes me really love it. And because it's big and gigantic, it definitely looks very menacing like in the anime, but it makes it even crazier when we evolve it into the Chaos Dyson Sphere, because it has corrupted energy around it. But not only that, the satellite now looks more like a full-on star rather than just surrounding the sun, and in my opinion that just makes the monster even scarier, hence why this just made it to my number 10. And then to my number 9, which is actually a duel, that being the number 53 Heart Earth along with number 69 Hereditary Crest, which are both basically final boss monsters to the main antagonist of season 1. And I really love these two just because, one, their designs are pretty creepy, especially number 69 having multiple forms, in a similar vein to Winged Dragon of Ra, one being God Rage and the other one being God Medallion. And also the anime version was actually kind of ridiculous that it could be classified as probably the ultimate number, and this number needed Rage to even be used. But then moving on to number 53, while the base form is not very awesome, it does look menacing as a giant golem, but then when it gets destroyed, the Heart Earth Dragon gets unleashed, which is a different number being number 93. And this is actually why this is equal to number 69, because normally number 69 would be on its own without this one, but thanks to this card's dragon form, this card is just freaking ridiculous in the anime and even in real life in a way if you're able to summon this. And Heart Earth Dragon is actually pretty awesome itself. I just really love its menacing design. And both of them also have their evolved forms as well. While they're not very notable in the anime because they were used by a different character, Chaos number 69 definitely looks very menacing, especially since it was a chaosified version of a raging-like monster. And then Chaos Heart Earth Dragon definitely looks menacing just because of its corrupted body look, and arguably this monster could have probably been summoned sooner against the 3 pro tags when Faker actually got possessed. But overall, some of the coolest boss monsters ever shown, especially when it comes to powerful final villain ace monsters. And then to number 8, which is number 88, Gimmick Puppet Leo, because this number is one of the more unique numbers having its own auto win condition, even though it's very terrible in the real one and kind of scary in the anime one because it only requires you 2 turns for the auto win condition with still high powerful attack. What really makes this number on my list is actually because of the chaos form. Being Chaos number 88, Disaster Leo, which definitely looks like disaster and it looks crazy, since instead of a warrior lion, this is a giant behemoth lion that has a bomb under it. And just like regular Leo, it actually has the auto win condition, but also an added effect for monster protection, along with the stupid added effect where it actually deals 4,000 points of damage to your opponent in the anime version, which would normally be an OTK. Although unfortunately, 2,000 in the real life version, and it's even harder to get its win condition. But its appearance all alone in the anime just what makes this on my list, hence why it's here number 8. And then on number 7, it's going to be a trio, and they're all Shark and Nash based monsters, that being number 32, number 73, and number 101. Number 32 representing Ryoga's current life with the awesome Shark Drake. Base form is already pretty awesome, but then when he chaosifies it into a mechanical dragon shark, it looks definitely pretty powerful. And in my opinion, Shark Drake definitely has the coolest form out of 3 ace monsters, but each one have a very similar meaning, hence why I'm putting them all in the list, and they are still all pretty awesome anyway. Especially when we go to his past life of number 73. 73 not as cool as Shark Drake in my opinion, but definitely looks like a guardian deity like, and I just really love the powerful look that it has. But then when we evolve it into the Chaos number 73, definitely looks like a corrupted guardian deity of Barian World, and I really love this monster. I just really wish it was summoned more than once. But then when we go to his current self of number 101, the base form is not as cool as the other 2 forms, but I do love the fact that it's literally a battleship, which when we evolve it into the actual Dark Knight, which was actually in the ship, he wears the ship into a full-on chaos armor, which is something I really love about this evolution in comparison to the other 2. So overall, they're all cool in their own way with the idea of past, present, and future, and while one of them is cooler than the other, I would have to say all 3 monsters do have heavy meaning towards the character, hence why I have to put them all as equal. And they're almost as cool as each other, especially with the idea of how they evolve. And into number 6, which is actually a primary manga one, being the Sin Spiders. Of course, we start off with number 70 being the base form, which already looks pretty creepy out on its own. But then when we evolve it into a different number as a rank 10 to number 35, which turns into a giant tarantula, which is definitely pretty awesome, and it's definitely very creepy being a giant ass spider. And then when we evolve it even further into number 84 to the Painkiller, which is definitely another giant spider and it's still pretty creepy, and we turn into the ultimate giant spider, which represents the deadly sins, being the rank 12, number 77, because number 7 was taken, so we choose double 7 instead, which definitely looks very awesome as an ultimate cool mechanical spider. And one thing I really love about this evolution, despite being from the manga, and normally I like the anime stuff more than the manga, is that this one is pretty unique that it keeps changing numbers. And I also really love the idea that they just keep ranking up similar to New Orders, but this is actually a numbers version, hence why it's actually on the list. Although in my opinion it's just not as cool as the other monsters on the list, but pretty cool in concept, especially on the creepiness of them, hence why it's right here. And then to the halfway point, it's the very first over 100 number, and it's going to be number 107, Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, which is the polar opposite of regular Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, that being the Dragon of Time, and the other half of the Numeron Dragon, which already has a pretty cool metallic base form, and one of the coolest ace monsters ever shown, and then evolving it into a golden menace of a 3-headed Neo Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, which is definitely the inverse colors of the base Tachyon Dragon, just like all the other Chaos variation of evolved forms, and also a fusion ultimate form, which will not be counted as Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, but as Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon itself, it's pretty awesome. I just really wish that they do more with this monster, although it will be unfair to the other variants unless they expand more with each of the variants. And then to number 4 on my list, which is personally one of my favorite ace monsters of all times, unfortunately doesn't reach to number 3 because number 3 has more meaning, which is Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. The number 62 to start off, just because that's the number variation, although the base form or the pre-base form is considered the base form in the anime, and even as regular Photon Dragon itself before pre-number is pretty awesome. But then when it goes to its true form into the number, with the power of Astro returning back to number 62, number 62 is pretty awesome. Essentially considered the ultimate form and the true power of the Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. And it also has other forms like the Neo Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, which is the angered form with Barian power. If only Chaos number 62 actually showed up in the anime, that would have been pretty awesome, although Kaito died before this probably had even a chance to show up. Also, let's not forget about the manga version as well when it comes to Galaxy Eyes, which is actually what led it to be higher than Galaxy Eyes Tachyon. Because of this, like 1, Galaxy Eyes has an armor exceed change, which makes it into the full armor Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, which looks pretty awesome. And then we also got number 38, which is the Hope Harbinger Galaxy, which is essentially a galaxy infused with the power of hope. Not fused with Utopia or hope itself, just infused with the power of hope into the Galaxy Eyes, technically. Which is essentially Kaito's final evolution, since it's galaxy fused with hope. Thus we got number 38, and it also evolves into a shiny number into the shining version of number 38. And then the final ultimate form in the manga, the Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon, which is number 95, which is definitely pretty awesome because dark matter does relate to the galaxy, especially from an idea from a photon going into a dark matter. So with the manga factor in, I have to of course make it higher than regular Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon. And besides, Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon is still pretty awesome, in both manga and anime. Although we did technically have an Ultimate Galaxy Eyes actually been used, it's just this one individually is not as cool as the next ones on the list, although technically the Ultimate Galaxy Eyes is here on the list. But individually as Galaxy Eyes, one of the coolest ace monsters, so I have to put it right here. And now to my number 3, probably could arguably be higher just because all the forms it got, but the base form is not as cool as the top 2, so it's on my number 3, which is number 39, Utopia. Like I said, it's an awesome base form and it's an awesome ace monster, really symbolizes hope, hence the name and especially what the card represents to both the pro tag along with the partner, especially its evolution symbolizing their growth. Start off with Utopia Ray, which is actually pretty awesome considering that it's the inverse color of regular Utopia, although I just don't like the face design since it does feels kind of weird that it doesn't have its helmet. In which when we equip it with the Zexal weapon, the ultimate one, which is their made up Leo arms form, which looks pretty awesome. And then when we go further on to rank up with Hope Ray V, pretty much of an idea of a corrupted Utopia influenced with chaos, which definitely looks pretty awesome. And then we go to the Numeron or Astral version with Hope Ray Victory, which definitely looks even cooler. And then when Yuma is separated from Astro and used Utopia himself, instead of ranking up, he decided to rank down to Utopia Roots, which looks like Squire Utopia, and it makes sense considering that it's a rank down, with their ultimate form together being Beyond, which is basically all the other Utopia forms combined into one, which is of course pretty awesome. And then we go to 2 separate forms of Utopia, or Hope, depending on how you like to look at it, but the ultimate form of Utopia is definitely the Utopic Dragon, which is the Astral variation, which is also number 99, and a warrior turning into a dragon-themed monster is always pretty awesome, especially if it's considered its final form, and in a way this is representing Utopia with the Numeron code. And then we got Yuma's version with Utopic Future, which is the number 0, as a symbolism of Yuma restarting his life. And arguably this could be considered a separate monster, but I would still argue that without Utopia this card cannot exist, so I'll be counting it as a separate form. And let's also not forget about the evolved forms in the manga, like the Shining Utopia, along with Lightning, and then going even further to the ultimate form being number 93, which is the inverse of 39 by the way, which I actually found that pretty awesome. And in a way, you could also put this as the ultimate form, but also Chaos Fight a bit because it's the inverse colors of regular Utopia. Although I still prefer the anime side, especially when it comes to turning into a dragon. So yeah, Utopia has to be on the top 5 just because it is pretty awesome for one, and also the symbolism throughout the whole show and the growth of it, it definitely has to make it up high this list, although just not as cool as the next 2 monsters. And now the one that nearly made it to my number 1, but unfortunately is number 2, is going to be the number 1000 Numeronius. Because 1000 representing the 1000, and technically it is a god tier monster, as essentially it's a corrupt version of the Numeron code into a monster. And one of the reasons of this one being up on the list is the angelic chaos nature of it with absurd attack. With the cool looking base form, and I just love its design, but then we evolve it into the monstrosity of the 100,000 attack Numeronius Numeronia. While in my opinion not as cool as Numeronius, the base form, I do kinda love its design for basically being a gateway to hell. Just overall one of the most unique, coolest ace monsters ever summoned, and one of the coolest final ace monsters, which is why it's on my number 2 on the list, especially for its ridiculous stats, although it doesn't beat my number 1 in my opinion. And then before going to my number 1, time for some honorable mentions. Starting out with the number 46 Draculon, a Chinese looking dragon that looks pretty awesome, and one of the fusion counterparts that goes to the Numeron Dragon. And it also relates to the Galaxy Eyes, hence why I put it in honorable mentions, but unfortunately not on the list, because the ones on the list I feel like are cooler. And this one has barely been used, which I really wish that Kaito actually summoned a little more, even if it's just 1 or 2 duels. And then there's number 37, Spider Shark, which is actually a hope monster as well, fused with Shark's shark, or Ryoga's shark, which is also part dragon, which is actually what I found this awesome as a mutant of that, although I don't think it's necessary for it to be a spider, with a evolution that being a shiny number as well. But unfortunately, it's one of the less memorable manga numbers as well. And finally, we got number 96, which is the polar opposite of the number 39 and represents the dark side of Astral, which is also pretty awesome, although not as cool as the ones in the top 10, but I do love its creepy design, which, speaking of its creepy design, it goes even creepier by evolving it with a Baryon power to Chaos number 96, which gets revealed that it's actually the Dark Astral version corrupted by Dawn Thousand's power, which even corrupted his own physical body into evolving into nothing like Astral but a Baryon infused Astral. So overall pretty cool, but just not as cool as the ones in the top 10 in my opinion. So on the number 1 on my list, it is once again the God tier dragon, and it was the one that I say it's the coolest monster of Sexual Summon, and it's the Numeron dragon, the god of the universe. And it does have the title of Dragon Creation, and I just love its design because it reminds me of Super Shenron and Dragon Ball Super, but its design is just absurdly gorgeous, and the body itself looks like a universe all into one, and in a similar feat like it's a Buddha. Just all that with its gorgeous design just has to make this to my number 1. It is probably the most powerful monster in lore-wise, and I'm just a sucker for dragons, so number 1 it is. And so that's it for my top 10 rankings when it comes to Zexal numbers, or just any of the numbers overall, because there are stuff that showed up after Zexal, and the main 100 numbers never got to show up in the anime, hence why a lot of stuff did have to show up after. What do you guys think of it? How would you rank them? And this will also include all the other numbers that are not the main 100 as well. Because oh boy, this was actually one of my favorite concepts when it came to Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever, especially with the idea of them being a mysterious character's memories. I still remember back in the day when I was first watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, I was just excited every time I see a new number. And any rando can always have a number, and the number is just fun, especially with the number collecting. And go ahead and tell me what you guys think about your number concept down below as well, because I just gave you my thoughts, so go ahead and tell me yours. But when it came to the numbers, I always loved the fact that there's also subcategories of them, like the legendary or myth numbers along with the over 100 numbers, over 100 being my favorite concept, especially on what they did with the manga different in comparison to what they did with the anime. And also numbers being the introduction to Exceed monsters was also pretty awesome, because I really love Exceed monsters overall, even though that they in many ways are still considered a little awkward considering that they were one of the monsters without a level and it was introduced without levels. But still overall one of my favorite cool concepts that also became one of my favorite summoning methods. But on that, that's it for this, and see you all next time.